Warning, the build you're about to see is very ambitious for a small ship and is nowhere near finished. Please be aware that this build may or may not be finished depending on the game performance. Hello there guys, my name is Jay or DA and welcome back to another episode of the devlog for the Genesis Starliner. Now, it is actually going considerably well, being as the warning I always put at the start of these videos. I've managed to get colour involved in it now, so I've actually got like this red and the white and the grey going into it, and there have been a few tweaks and changes and a few things you guys have asked about which I'm going to answer in this sort of video. Now, the first thing you're probably going to notice is from the reference images you'll see that on the actual wings, on the bottom section of the wings, you'll see that there's like one thruster, and it's like basically it encompasses this whole section. Well, there isn't a thruster big enough that does this sort of rotatey thing that is an atmospheric thruster in the game. There isn't a mod for anything of this size, so I've had to basically mix the hydrogen thrusters with the atmos thrusters just to give it a bit more push, and also it's kind of good because it means it can now sort of get in and out of space. Haven't really tested it out properly yet. I've had a bit of a wander around with it and tried to fly it around a little bit, but there's still a few kinks to work out, as well as trying to make this thing move forwards and backwards at some sort of pace because it's still pretty slow. Now, I have started adding sort of the comfort features now, so I've actually got windows in, and I've also got this like under section which has loads of pipes, and I think it's coming along pretty nicely. I've managed to also get the door in at the top, which is kind of like a similar thing you'd have on an aeroplane, and then we've also got like an access hatch on the sides as well. These are purely just because I didn't want people going through the main sort of entrance for the passengers to go all the way through and down. I have started working out the kinks on the internals as well, as you can already tell, where I've been organising things and trying to put things into appropriate places. But yeah, it's ridiculously big. Every now and then, if the game doesn't like you, it will sort of jump and stutter. Fortunately, because I'm not placing blocks at the moment or deleting blocks, I'm not getting any of that stuttering, and I'm at a solid sort of 50 frames at the moment, which is brilliant. But yeah, so the one thing that one of you guys asked was how am I actually going to get the slope on these wings? The answer to that is I'm not. If this were a smaller ship, maybe like, I don't know, quarter scale or something, I would perhaps use rotors to sort of rotate the wings down and give them that sort of angular look, but then that would also mean I'd have issues with propulsion and things like that not working out correctly, because of course with the models that they produce in Star Citizen, they are completely sort of freeform models and they're not really that sort of tied down. They've got some overall dimensions, but they're not really that tied down, so they can go a bit mental and put these thrusters on the piss, basically put them on a slant, and it kind of makes everything in Space Engineers a lot harder. But I think it looks okay, to be honest. There are still some supporting struts that need to go in just here. I think there's like 3 of them on each wing, and those just support it and make sure that the wings sort of support each other and make sure they don't fall off or bend too much. But yeah, I've also made a decision on the landing gears, because that is one of the biggest things I've got an issue with right now. And the way I'm going to have to do this for this build, because it is massive, is I'm going to have them as static landing gears, so they'll basically be a permanent feature that won't move in or out because of the ship. Again, if it was half scale, maybe I could do that with the pistons and everything else, but with pistons being as they are at the moment as well, I don't think I would like to use them, because I'd rather make sure this is a fairly stable model than have a janky piece of crap that really just does nothing really. So yeah, the last sort of few things I've got to do on the outsides are just a few more details, a few more sort of ports and things like that. I've also got to make sure there's an access port for the cargo and refueling, but I think I'm not going to be too worried about that, because I've actually got this large area here which is actually the hangar. So I call it a hangar. It's basically a large cargo bay that you can store stuff in. You can store cars in here and everything. It's massive. But what we've got here is we've actually got the sort of the cargo section where we could put loads of cargo containers and some connectors in here, and then you just basically have to bring a ship in, attach it, fuel up or fill up with stuff, and then you'd be, you know, good to go. Now, if we walk through here, we actually have access to the under section. Now, I've actually made this accessible from the pilot section, because if you notice on planes actually have an access hatch, or some of them do, in the cockpit. And I don't really have a lot of schematics for this ship, but I figured why not go all out and make this thing super connected, because the main question is well, you're a pilot, there's an issue, or you're an engineer that's in the cockpit, there's an issue underneath, or you need to get to the cargo area without really drawing too much attention to yourself with any of the passengers. So you can basically just jump down here, down a ladder which is actually climbable, which is badass, and you can actually sort of wander up under here then, and you can actually do all that gubbins. I'll have to make sure this area is airtight, of course, because if not, then that will mean lots of people will die when this door opens. But other than that, that's really it. Now once you're up here, we've got this very large sort of cockpit sort of area, which will be very useful. I'm thinking of having rows of chairs for sort of navigators, maybe big screens here and things like that, and then maybe a massive row of sort of computers, and try and make it look like something that is really complex and complicated, which this ship is. It's a big ship and it's got lots of life support systems that need to be in place. As another thing, moving on, segueing slowly onto other things, I don't actually have life support set up in this yet. I've got ideas for sort of pipes that come out of the ground, or and having some sort of venting system which should work appropriately, and I've just got to get that in place. But I want to place all the chairs in first into this sort of main area, which is where the 40 passengers will sit, and then we'll hopefully be able to get all those life support systems in place and sort of fairly happy with them. So yeah, it's getting on. It really is. There are a couple of other things I need to do, like storage and hand luggage sort of compartments, maybe like a sort of an on slant sort of racking system here or something. I don't know, but either way, we need to do something like that. We have windows in place now for the areas where people are going to be sitting, which I'm going to try and make as like concealed areas, like on a train. Think of it like a train carriage where you have like a small sort of seating area for like 6 people or something. I'm going to try and make it like that. Not too enclosed. I'm going to probably put a little bit of a wall up. So like a little bit of walling up here. But I'm not going to make it too sort of enclosed. I want to make sure you've still got access, so the sort of waitresses and stuff can come walking down and sort of serve you and things. And I reckon that'd be really cool. And the only thing, my main worry with all this is that the lighting will probably kill it. Because at the moment, again, it's running quite stable, it's doing okay, and you can fly this pretty well with a fairly beast computer. And yeah, I really hope that the lighting doesn't kill it too much. As another thing, I figured out the toilet situation as well, because I was really worried about toilets, believe it or not, because these are my favourite things in ships. And I actually worked out this very nice sort of hovel, which is very reminiscent of an actual plane's sort of toilet, which is very cramped, very confined, has everything you need in, and a little bit of well, these actually have windows, whereas planes don't have windows in their toilets. I don't know why. I would personally love to sit on a toilet and look out as we're flying, but that's just me. That's just me not really being scared of flying too much. But yeah, we have these doors in place now, so we actually have some sort of doorway system, so we can actually walk through here. As you see, the stuttering's starting to begin a little bit. It's getting a little bit as I'm pushing further through the craft, and as I'm using the blocks as well, which is a little bit of an issue. But yeah, as you can see, we've got this sort of walkway system now, so all your passengers would funnel through here, and then they'd be able to walk down and find their appropriate seating and sort of sit down and enjoy themselves and whatever. Then we have this large back room, which will be denoted to all of the operation systems. I already have some sort of hydrogen tanks here. There will be a lot more, obviously, because having this many hydrogen thrusters on one craft will not suffice. It will not be sufficient. So yeah, we've got loads of gyroscopes. However, this still makes this thing stupidly slow. So what I'm thinking is that if I remove this back hydrogen tank, I could sort of make these into like server racks of gyroscopes. So do the same sort of pattern here, but then sort of bring them out and make them sort of like bookshelf looking things, and maybe have them like again like a server rack. It looked really cool, I think. And yeah, I have implemented some sort of connections between the bottom and top floors, easy for the operations guys. So you are able to climb up these ladders, and I'll actually show that off now because these ladders are freaking badass. So what you can do is you hit T, and you can actually climb up them. This one you actually bounce off of because they work better if you're walking forwards after you get up there, but you can basically just hover for a little second and turn around and fly over. But yeah, so we've got all that in place, and everything again is going well, but I'm still unsure of the stability of this when, you know, it comes down to it, when we get all the lights in and when everything else finishes. I've still got a few thrusters to add. I've still got rear propulsion, well, backward propulsion to sort out, because this thing currently only goes forwards. It has a little bit of backward propulsion with the ions, but I want to make sure it can stop in an atmospheric environment as well, without having to tilt the whole thing to like 45 degrees and then bring it down again, because that seems a bit uncomfortable for the passengers, especially when you've got two lots of gravity acting upon you when you're landing. And then yeah, we've got landing gears, as I've said, lights, and then all the internal stuff, which hopefully will go well. And I think it is going pretty well at the moment. I'm really enjoying building this. It's a bit of a challenge because, again, there's not that many reference models there and not that many reference images, but I'm kind of going off my own inspiration as well, and just kind of think, what do I think would go in this? And yeah, I just love the look of this craft. Look at it. I think also, oh, that's another thing as well I forgot to tell you, I did end up making it fatter because it looked way too skinny when I first did it. I ended up basically performing surgery on it and splitting it in two halves, and then basically adding the layers back up again, and I think I made it thicker by about 5 blocks, which I think has done it justice. It now is in more of a proportion, and I think it's a sensible proportion. So yeah, that has been it for this sort of devlog, guys. Hopefully you guys are as happy as I am with how this is turning out. It doesn't look exactly like the Genesis Starliner, but I think it's got all those sort of characteristics there and the general outside shapes there to be something that you'd happily call the Genesis Starliner. So if you guys have enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Go and check out the progress I'm making on this if you can. I have basically published this to the workshop. The link will be in the description below. Go and check it out if you can. Maybe play around with it yourself. Look at some different ways of doing things if you want. Show me the ideas. I don't know. Just check it out. I'll see you guys later. Peace.